Welcome back. We're going to continue our study of the subject matter in Deuteronomy chapter 28 as we're continually going through our study of the book of Deuteronomy. Blessings and glory and honor to the Father Yah and to Messiah YHWH and to the 12 greetings to the 12 tribes who have been scattered according to what we're reading even now in Deuteronomy to the four corners of the earth through slavery. And 144,000 among them who are the forerunners of the return of Messiah, the forerunners of the return of Messiah. In fact, let's take a look at this as we're looking at Malachi. Start off with Malachi. Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi. And let's look at the last chapter of the last book of the Old Testament. Now, before actually we read that, let's look at chapter 3, which is the end of chapter 3 kind of goes into chapter 4, which is not unusual with prophetic utterance. So let's take a look here in the Hebrew prophet Malachi. Malachi chapter 3, beginning at verse, let's begin at verse, going to begin at verse 15 and go from verse 15 of chapter 3 of Malachi all the way through chapter 4 verse 6, which is the entire chapter, 6 verses. So this talks about the last days. It is prophecy, of course, and of course all prophecy is centered in the Father Yah and in Messiah, and through Messiah first to his bloodline Hebrew people. All prophets of the Bible are Hebrew Israelites. All prophets of the Bible receive their messages from Father Yah. All prophets of the Bible get that message through Messiah, who received it from Father Yah. So this is typical of all Hebrew prophets, because all the prophets from Moses all the way to Malachi in the Old Testament are Hebrew Israelites. And even in the New Testament, most of the epistles written in the New Testament were from the apostle who was formerly called Shaul, changed his name to Paul, and of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew Israelite. And so this is the Bible-centered people, the Hebrew Israelites. And so this prophecy is about, again, our future. And so which we're living in right now, we are among the last generation of Hebrew Israelite prophets to live on this side of Babylon. Babylon is about to be destroyed completely, and it's about to be changed to a new order. And the order is not after man, it's after Father Yah. It is the kingdom of Father Yah and Messiah YHWH, his son. It is a kingdom of perfect righteousness. That is the new order that's coming. Okay. And so we are that generation that are now witnessing, beholding, becoming part of the last part of the vestiges of Babylon. So let's take a look at Malachi chapter 3 from verse 15 into chapter 4, verse 6. And now we call the proud happy. Yea, they that work wickedness are set up. Yea, they that tempt Yahweh are even delivered. Then they that feared Yahweh spake often one to another, and Yahweh hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yahweh and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith Yahweh of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth Yah and him that serveth him not. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts. It shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall, and ye shall tread down the wicked. For they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith Yahweh of hosts. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Oreb, for all the statutes and judgments. Witness 1. And behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and the dreadful day of YAH. Witness 2. And ye shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. The 144,000 are the witnesses being represented here by Moses and Elijah, being witnesses of the covenant of the Father Yah, his perfect righteousness in Elijah by the power of his spirit, the spirit and power of Elijah or Aliyah. So you can see that there. And you can see also the Bible is telling us in the last day that wickedness is set up. They that work wickedness are set up, and they that tempt Yahweh are even delivered. But then later on, they're turned into ash. And we grow up as calves of the stall, which means we're coming as babies into the kingdom, but we're going to grow over the course of the 1,000 years, both physically, spiritually, mentally, knowledge. We're going to grow over the 1,000-year period. And so that's what this is saying, brethren and sisters. Now, this being the case, brought something to my mind that I think we need to understand as we're reading Deuteronomy 28 that would help us. God shalom, Brother Mark. I think we would understand. Let us be reminded, brethren, that in the Bible, there is no such thing as race. Race is another man-made theory that we have all been brainwashed to receive. Isn't that correct? You don't see anything in the Bible as people being differentiated by their race. Do you? You don't see anything in the Bible like that. If you were to do even a very cursory study of the origin of race, what you will find is that it started with the children of Japhet. The children of Japhet created race. And the purpose, when you read the theories that the children of Japhet's scientists came up with as a result of their study and creation of this paradigm we call race, what you will find is they favor the people that are of Japhetic background as the superior race. You'll find that they created races out of different groups of people, and they based it on their shapes of their skulls. This is only a cursory look. You don't have to go deep into it to know that. They took Caucasoids. They took what they called Caucasites, the children of Japhet. They took Negroids, the children of what they call Africans. They took Asiatic. They took these various peoples and they separated them into races. And the object of one of them was to prove that the Caucasoid was the superior race. But the Bible doesn't do that. People are divided and categorized in the Bible. But they're divided first, as we saw, the Bible showed us. In fact, let's take a look. Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. And let's take a look first at verse 1. And this just to get the point of how Most High divided the peoples. Let's take a look. Genesis chapter 10, verse 1. And then let's go down to verse 5. Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 and 5. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, Japheth, or Japheth, if you're not understanding that there's no such thing as J in the Bible, that it was nearly early, really, the YAH sound, right? So that's why I say Japheth, but somebody might say Japheth, that's okay. But you see, it says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. So first it goes into Japheth's children. And you go to verse 5. It says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So you can see that he took Japheth's children first, and then they had all kinds of children with Japheth. And he says, these were divided, and they were all called Gentiles, and they were divided by their lands and their nations. Did it say anything about race? No, it did not. It did not. Okay. And then you see verse 20, because it started with Japheth, then it went to Ham. Verse 20 of Genesis chapter 10. These are the sons of Ham after their families and after their tongues, in their countries and in their nations. So you had Ham, who had nations and tongues and countries, but they were under Ham. Does that understand? You see that? So you could see that Japheth's people were divided. They were called Gentiles. Then you had Ham's people divided by their nations. And then you go to Shem. Now Shem, verse 31. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. So you had Shemites, and they also had families and nations and tongues. Again, you don't see anything race related, do you? There's nothing race related. Let me see if I can get this thing clear. There's nothing race related here. Sorry for the fuzziness. Trying to get it to clear up there. Okay, hopefully. All right. There's nothing race related. And then verse 32. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So you can see the nations were not divided by the color of the skin. Y'all see that, right? They were divided by the nations, and the nations were divided by and the nations were divided by the three sons of Noah. So the three sons of Noah was where you get separation of nations, and within those sons, each son had a group of nations. So you had a group of nations under the Hamites, a group of nations under Japheth, and a group of nations under Shem. So you had people divided by, and they were, the Bible says, divided by these areas, by Shem, Ham, Japheth, and within those three by nations. There is no race in there, okay? Well, then later on, we know now that the people of Europe, which were the Gentiles, came up with this theory of race. And again, their premise, their end result was that the people from Europe were the smartest people on the earth. And the Negroids were probably among the dumbest. Now, this theory, this paradigm of race into which we were all brainwashed, educated and brainwashed in, right? This theory of race, as we are awakening, right? We're awakening to who we are. And the very theory of race that they propagated helped to Hebrews of the nation of the Hebrews to wake up who they are. So that now, and tell me I'm wrong about this here. Brother Walter, tell me I'm wrong. Now, because of that, you have some of the people of Europe saying, why are you guys making such a big deal out of race? Have y'all heard that one? Why is everything based on race all of a sudden? Jesus didn't have any race. Why are we all talking about race so much? Why are we basing everything on race? Now, wait. Let's back up for a second. So you get this group of people, right? You get a group of people. Let's not even call them anything. Let's just say group X. You get group X. Group X creates a theory about race, right? Group X created this theory about race. And Group X divided the world by different things they called races. in their theory. And Group X that created this theory came to the conclusion that Group X was the smartest, most intelligent group of races on the entire planet. Group X did that. But then you got this Group Y, who was labeled as probably the dumbest group of people on planet Earth. Group Y starts to awaken to find out we were kings, Group X. And how you categorized us kind of proves that. So how does Group X now sound by saying, why are you guys making a big deal out of race? I mean, how does that make any sense when they started the whole theory? Does that make sense? So they started this thing, and the thing they started is blowing up in their face. So that there's an awakening going on based on what their theory started. Isn't that amazing? And now they're trying to claim, whereas for multiple, I'd say at least, let's say conservatively, 15 centuries. Conservatively. For 15 centuries, Group X have been telling us the Messiah looks like Group X. His skull was like Group X. Messiah is more related to us. No, Messiah is not you in Group 9 because y'all too dumb. No, Messiah is Group X. And Group Y started to believe it. They said, okay, we'll worship the Group X Messiah. We'll worship him. But it never really made sense to us. It never really helped us. You see, because Group X promised us, if you worship the Messiah of Group X, you'll be lifted up. You'll be blessed. But after multiple centuries of worshiping the Messiah of Group X, we find ourselves just in as much trouble as before we even knew Group X. If not worse. Isn't that crazy? So now Group Y discovers the Messiah is really from Group Y. And his father is really the one that chose Group Y. And now Group X is like, wait a minute, y'all making too big a deal of this thing. Y'all need to slow down. Ah, Lord have mercy upon us. But you can see my point. There's no race in the Bible. There's no such thing. I mean, really, truly, honestly, there's no such thing as a white person. But we're used to categorizing that because we've all been brainwashed into that. There's no such thing really as a black person. Really, the people that are called black are mostly just different shades of brown. Isn't that correct? We're different shades of brown. And the people that are called white are different shades of pink. I mean, I'm just saying, right? Different shades of pink. Some of them are more pink than others, right? Different shades of pink and red, right? Different shades of pink and red versus different shades of brown. That's really what we are if you want to talk about technically what our look like. Now, some of us are really Caucasian, like white, like almost white as this sheet, but it doesn't look pure. It looks colorless. And some of us are black as the darkest midnight, and it don't look brown. It does really look black, like the brother that laid hands on Paul. They called him Niger. Niger means black. I mean, that brother, just like when we was growing up in my neighborhood, you know, we used to make fun of each other's noses, the shapes of each other's hair, the shapes of how big our lips was. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. We lived in the neighborhood and we had nicknames. All the brothers in the hood always had nicknames. We always had nicknames. And so the brothers, we was all black, but the brothers that was real dark, like one of my best friends, we just call him Smoke. To this day, we all grew up from 5 years old together. And to this day, 60 years later, when we talk, if we was talking among ourselves, say, y'all heard from Smoke? We know who Smoke is. Right? We know who Smoke is. Okay? Everybody had a nickname. That was his. Right? Because some of us really are dark brown. And some of us really are very fair-skinned. In fact, so fair-skinned in the hood, there was another nickname. Who you talking about, man? You know, the Redbone sister. Oh, the Redbone sister. You know who I'm talking about, right? That brother Redbone. You know who I'm talking about. See? So there's really, but even among the Hebrews unawakened, we always had nicknames. That's why they call one of the disciples a Canaanite. Now, he wasn't bloodline Canaanite, but they called him a Canaanite. You know why they called him a Canaanite? When you look up the word Canaanite in his particular instance, it's not because he's actually bloodline Canaanite. It means zealot. It means he was wild. So they call him a wild Gentile. You can see, when you really look at the Bible for the real people, you can see the similarities in the Hebrews, even the unawakened Hebrews. They all got nicknames. Messiah gave Peter, that was a nickname. His name was Kaffa. And Messiah said, well, his name was Shimon. And Messiah, I'm going to call you Kaffa. Because your head hard like a stone, bro. See? And he called James and John Boanerges, the sons of thunder. Brothers always got nicknames, even in the Bible. Niger means black. It doesn't mean everybody else is white and he was black. That means that brother was dark. He was like smoke. Okay? You understand? But in the Bible, there's no such thing as race. No such thing. Right? So you coming from a nation, and now, as part of the awakening, this is part of the understanding. Race doesn't exist. Nations exist. And the origin of nations exist. So what origin are you? Well, Deuteronomy is telling us where we come from. We come from Shem. And not only do we come from Shem, we are Israelites from Eber, Yashar Al, right? It's telling us who we come from. And it ain't got nothing to do with black, Negro, African American, right? It ain't got nothing to do with none of that. And that's part of awakening. That's part of recognizing and having knowledge of self. So now when you have knowledge of self and you really start, and I'm not talking about a theoretical knowledge. I'm talking about you have embraced who you are. You have embraced the Hebrew. Like I said, me and my wife and my friends, like Iman and Bakash and Ruel, we don't even talk in terms of color. We say, oh, the Hebrew? Yeah, the Hebrew sister. The Hebrew brother. He may not be awakened, but we know what we're talking about. Or the children, the son of Yefet. One of the Yefet over there. Or who's Yefet? We know who Yefet is. Or if I say to my wife, northern tribes, she know we're talking about people that are classified as maybe Hispanic, but they really come from Tainos or Mayans or Aztecs, and we'll say northern tribes. Because we no longer are ascribing really. I mean, it slips out and I'll say this black dude, this white woman, blah, 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 right? Or, but we mostly are now changing. There's a change. There's a metamorphosis going on where we're now recognizing who we are, so that when somebody starts to talk about African American or black or white or Hispanic or Latin, we understand who they really are, and we understand the person talking doesn't. Right? You understand? My wife and I went to Mexico. That's all we saw was northern tribes. Oh, northern tribes. And you could definitely, there was no doubt they had a culture that was different than the children of Yefet. Different. In fact, a lot of their culture and a lot of the things they did was very similar to those of us that came from West Africa. Very similar. Okay, very similar. Okay, you'll see a lot of similarities in that. Why? Because we come from the same nation. Yeah. I've heard that. Definitely. Those are the ones that are so-called white trash, right? WCK. They call white trash. Those are really just poor children of Yafet. The children of Yafet that don't realize they own cousins are dogging them. Their cousins in politics are dogging them. And they think just because they look like their cousins that they got something. But you see, brethren, that was the whole premise, though. That's why race came to the United States. See, because the Caucasians, those people come from Caucasus Mountains and children of Yafet, the Europeans, the rich ones, they needed a way to divide and conquer. Isn't that what Asatan does? Divide and conquer. So what did they do? They caused the poor among the children of Yafet, who had no problem with Hebrews. They had no problem with them. In fact, that was the problem in the eyes of the wealthy, that there was no problem. So they said, look, they said to the poor among the Yafet children, you are like us. We come from the same people, you and us. We like cousins. But them, they ain't no relation to us. They are lower forms of human beings. Some of them are not even human beings. They're really more like animals. And they need our help to help them be civilized. Otherwise, they'd be just eating each other like cannibals. Am I right or am I wrong? So that even to this day, you got poor children of Yafet that are bought and sold into the paradigm. And they live in trailers and they struggle. And all of the things their cousins are doing are destroying them. But they can't see that because, well, they look like them. Well, you know, the same thing happens with us. Judas looked like the rest of us. Judas looked like the rest of us, so that, brethren, when he went to betray Messiah, he had to say, I'm going to give you a sign as to which one it is, because they all looked alike. I'm going to kiss the one that he is, I'm going to kiss him, and you're going to know that's him. So he walked up to Messiah and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Messiah said, Judas, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? Because they all looked alike. So Judas looked like them. But Judas wasn't them. He was a devil from the beginning. But you see, always the traitors look like us. See, even among the children of the Yafet, the traitors in their side look like them. And they trust the traitors because they look like them, they can talk their language, and they trust them. Even if really what they're doing is putting the screws to them harder than they can ever get it put on no other way. Same with us. We'll, this children of Yafet come to our church with one of us, he must be okay. Must be okay. Right? So that's how it works. But once you awaken and you realize, and I mean awaken all people that take the truth of the Hebrews, take the truth of the perfect righteousness of the Father and of the line of the tribe of Judah. Once you receive these truths, you will no longer buy into these paradigms. Like we said, there's a lot to learn and a lot to unlearn. One of the things we need to unlearn is if you're following Father YAH, he never came up with anything called race. And he never will. He didn't come up with that. That was man-made. Father YAH never came up with a religion called Christianity. He didn't. He didn't do that. He picked a man, Abraham, chose him and said, I'm going to make you the father of race. Did he say, I'm going to make you the father of the black race? Did he say that? No, he said, I'm going to make you the father of nations. There was no religious institution in the Bible. It didn't exist. There was no Islam. There was no Judaism. There is no Christianity. There's nations and their gods. And only one of all of the nations that make up Japhet, and all of the nations that make up Ham, and all of the nations that make up Shem, there was only one nation of all of them that was chosen by Father YAH. And that was the nation that started in the loins of Abraham, who became Abraham. That was the chosen nation. And it wasn't based on a race. But we have discovered on Deuteronomy, especially in 28, and as we discover reading the word, that, wait a minute, they did have a look to them, the children that were chosen. And this look was different shades of brown, but in the modern vernacular, in the modern vernacular, they're called black. Correct? The modern vernacular. In the modern vernacular, the Gentiles are called white in the modern vernacular. I mean, they're really children of Yahweh, but even they don't understand that. But you see, because we're reading this book, we understand it. So in the modern vernacular, they're called white. They can be different shades of white. Some of them can be a little bit like Italian, that Mediterranean. Some of them can be more like toward the north up there in Finland, a little bit more paler, fairer, right? But they're all what we would call white. And the chosen one are what we would call black. And that, brethren, is what upsets the people that created race. They didn't intend for that to be the case. That wasn't their intent. And yet, brethren, that's exactly what happened. And now I could tell you for sure, we're even moving beyond when we now understand, okay, there's the Hebrews, there's the Israelites, they're from Shem, we're Shemites, we're Hebrews from Shem, Eber, and we come from Israelite, which our father's name was Jacob, and his name was changed to Yasha'al, which they call Israel, and we know who we are. That's who we are. And our family was kicked out of our land because of disobedience, and most of us run into Africa and what is now called Africa, and was scattered into the four corners of the earth by slavery from that land. We understand who we are. And then the people that enslaved us, they were people from Ham. We ran into their land. It was Ham's land, the land of Ham. And they also sold us to some other Shemites called Arabs. They sold us to Elamites, Asher, who became Muslims. And then they sold us to Yahweh, led by a religion that Yahweh created called Christianity. That's what it all happened. I mean, isn't that very simple? Isn't that true? There you go. See? Not hard, but it's all again in here. Praise the Most High. So here, we're looking at the curses of Deuteronomy and realizing we fit those curses. And part of the curses, well, all of the curses the Most High brought upon us. But the signs of the curse, the things that happened to us, now we know why. And we can see, who were the persons enacting this curse. It just goes also to show, I listen to different people. I don't always talk about, I just listen to them to find the lies because they're all lying to me. So I listened to Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. I listened to a little bit of his speeches, and I listened to, let's say, Angela Davis, or I listened to MSNBC. I listened to some of them. And what I'm finding is very interesting. So Ron DeSantis talked about against critical race theory. And it depends on his audience. But this just gives you a sample of what we're dealing with here with the confusion called Babylon. Look. So he'll say something like this. It's not right that parents don't have a say in what their children are being taught in school. That's true, isn't it? It's not right that people are being taught that there's such a thing as gender neutral. That's true. It's not right that boys that are born boys can compete against girls because they're transgender. True. But then he'll say something like, it's not right that they think that they should hate us because we are the oppressor and they're the oppressed. See, mix that, isn't it? Then you go to the other side and they'll say something like, it's not right that they should be kicking books out of schools and try to deny people the right to learn. That's true. It's not right that people should be treated differently because of the color of their skin. That's true. But then they'll say something like, it's not right that rainbow and alphabet should be treated differently. You see how they both slip in their falsehoods with part of what might sound true? And then they create two sides, and everybody starts to choose one or the other. Well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. You see that? And they do it in politics, in business, and in religion. They do it. They do it, all of them. All of them do it. Okay? All of them do it. It's such hypocrisy. But that's the confusion that is Babylon. That's it. So we are looking at the word of the Most High, and it's giving us the straight what it is, what really it is, and where it came from. See? And let me tell you, I'm telling you all this for a reason. The reason I bring all this up is because what we just read in Malachi is very important in the sense that if you start to trust in this book alone, don't trust in no other books, no other people, you start put all your trust in this book and believe the words of this book, that's it. This book says it. That's all I need to know. They're going to say you're crazy. You're fanatical and you're crazy and you're unbalanced. You're going to hit it. You're going to hear that, brethren. You're fanatical, you're crazy, you're unbalanced. Why? Because you believe everything in this book to be real and true. Don't you understand that those are just made up stories? You're in a cult, all of that. Yep. Because you know what? The person that yells liar the loudest is our Satan. The person that yells liar the loudest is the origin of the lie. You know, that's where the lies come from. So our Satan will create situations where he is actually the origin of the evil and blaming others for the evil. Isn't that amazing? Deuteronomy chapter 28. Beginning at verse 47 and going down to verse 53. Deuteronomy 28 from verse 47 to verse 53. Because thou servest not Yahweh thy most high, with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. What people group suffered like this? They had the yoke of iron on their necks. They were in want of all things. Nakedness, hungry, want of all things. What people group? I mean, we're talking about a nation, right? That's what this is. So what nation of people did this happen to? Let's continue. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle. A nation fast like an eagle. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. That's right. Because Hebrew is a different language than the language of Japhet. Japhet's language, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you scholars out there, because I'm not a language scholar, but let me just say this. A lot of the languages of Europe come from the basis of Latin and Germanic languages. Isn't that correct? They come from Germanic languages, right? I mean, right? Whereas Hebrew is its own language from Shemitic language. It's different. Shemitic is different from, Germanic. Is that right? I mean, I think so. And then like Yiddish. Yiddish is not a Shemitic language. Yiddish comes from Germanic languages. So that, your Germanic languages you're talking about Germany, obviously, German, English, Latin, Spanish, right? Right? Russian. Those are all Germanic languages. They have a basis in the same thing. Versus Shemitic languages have a different basis. Shemitic languages, some of them don't even have vowels. They have sounds that sound like a vowel, but you don't have no real vowels. That's why you'll see YHWH. There's no vowel there, but there's sound. YAH, HA, WAH. And there's the I sound. There's no U sound, really. There's no vowels in Hebrew. Because it's not Germanic language. Now, Germanic languages are based with vowels. That's how you can, try to understand them. They're based with vowels. Different tense, different sounds, but based in the vowels. Okay? Well, a language you cannot understand. A nation of fierce countenance which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. So they come into other people's land and take the assets and destroy the people. How many people groups? Which one of those? Is that Ham? Is that Shem? I mean, who's that? He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land till thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee neither corn, wine, nor oil, or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahweh thy Most High hath given thee. And thou shalt eat of the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yahweh thy Most High hath given thee, in the siege, in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. That's called today cannibalism. That some of the Hebrews had to practice or did practice cannibalism. That's some sad stuff, isn't it? And did that happen? Yep. Yes, it did. It happened in what we now call Australia and New Zealand. It did. Happened out there. Some of us. It did. Okay, that's out of distress. Whew, okay, from 54 to 60. From 54 to 60. Deuteronomy 28 from 54 to 60. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Wait. Do y'all see anything in your family resembling that? Brother is evil toward his wife, toward his own brother, toward his own children. You ever see that? Like, some parents don't even care if their children could get out of this thing or not. You on your own. You figure it out. You know what we call that, right? Crab in the barrel. Don't we call that crab in the barrel? Isn't that crab in the barrel? Well, now you know where crab in the barrel comes from. It's verse 54 of Deuteronomy 28. See, verse 43 shows you why foreigners come in your neighborhoods and take over. Verse 54 tells you why we hate each other, why you get crab in the barrel. How you get crab in the barrel? Verse 54. That's what you get. Crab in the barrel. Right? That song again. What song was that? Where the friends coming over to brother's house, and they ain't coming over because they want to be friends. They coming over because they got eyes on homie's wife. Crab in the barrel. Verse 54. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath left nothing, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and the delicate woman among you, who shall not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and for tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. I had my great grandma. She was like that. Man, oh God, came right up from these sharecropping places and cleaning children of Yafet's houses here in Florida. Boy, man, oh man. Her reputation went generations ahead. Yeah, couldn't stand none of her children. Y'all's all ugly. Y'all ain't gonna amount to ish. Y'all ain't worth nothing. Y'all ever hear that in your family? You ever hear that in your family? And then she favored my dad. Why did she favor my dad? Because the rapist that hit my dad's mother pregnant, the rapist, made my dad look like he was Caucasian or from children of Yafet. And you gonna be the one to make it because he was light. See how sick we was? Some people still think like that. Where do we get that thought process from? I mean, where did that come from? The curse. It came from the curse. That's right. This came from the curse. Brethren, came from the curse. Verse 50, where was that? Verse 57, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness wherewith thy enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, Yahweh, thy most high, then Yahweh will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou was afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Wow. He keeps repeating that. Yeah. See that? Angry britches, that's what I'm saying. You all ain't gonna amount to nothing. You ain't worth ish. You never was. Y'all ugly. I can't stand you. High yellow. Blah, blah, blah. I heard all of that from my family. I heard all of that. And y'all did too. Boy, you so black. Look at your lips. Oh my God, you some ugly children. I had an aunt that I think that was her favorite word, ugly. Y'all some ugly children. And I ain't fronting. She was one of my favorite aunts. And y'all know, they could be acting like that, but you still love them because that's your fam, right? I mean, I still love them. That's one of my favorite aunts. I just go over her house because. You understand? I just go over her house because. That's my aunt. She passed. Rest in peace. But y'all know what I'm saying. That's right. But we know that self-hatred because we don't know who we are. Self-hatred because we bought into the paradigms that were taught to us. Self-hatred because we were disobedient to the God of our fathers. Therefore, we serve other gods taught to us by our enemies. And they also taught us to hate ourselves and to hate each other. See? Deuteronomy chapter 28. Beginning at verse 61 and going down to go to verse 67. We're not going to get 68 yet. Verse 61 to verse 67, Deuteronomy chapter 28. Also, every sickness and every plague which are not written in the book of this law, them will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. That is stuff you ain't even heard of yet. And ye shall, like AIDS, and ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahweh thy most high. And it shall come to pass that as Yahweh rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so Yahweh will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, would YAH it were even. And at even thou shalt say, would YAH it were morning. For the fear of thy heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thy eyes which thou shalt see. Fear, anger, extreme levels of fear and anger, extreme levels of poverty in the land of plenty, extreme levels of oppression in a land called a land of justice. Do we not know that? Like, that's not something we have to, again, this is a wonderful thing about this. You don't have to theorize. What is that like? Like, I don't know what that's like. Yeah, you do know what it's like. Yeah, you do. You know exactly what it's like. You understand? You know exactly where it comes from. You know exactly what it's like. You know exactly what it looks like, what it feels like. You know that. You lived it. That's right. There's nothing better, right? There's nothing more certain than a person that has actually lived the experience, okay? Like somebody, I mean, wouldn't you be offended if somebody sat there and theorized, this is what I think it was like? And that, no, you lived it. Don't theorize about my experience. I know what it was. You know, that killed me one time. This dude, children of Yafet, ain't never lived among us, come from New England, right? Northern New England, going to tell me this is what it's like for the black man. And this is what the black man thinks. And I said, you know, you should keep your mouth shut. Or why do you think that? I can give you proof. I said, you don't know nothing. You see, it's offensive to the Hebrews for people that are not Hebrews, never lived among Hebrews, to try to tell us what our experience is. That's why we would get angry at that. Let me also bring it down to you a little further. Some of y'all don't understand, and I can understand why you wouldn't. The word nigger. You say, well, why do you call each other nigger? Let me explain why. You ready? I'm going to give you the explanation. And some of y'all are going to tell me, oh, yeah, that's right. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. You ready? Because y'all, the children of Yafet called us niggers, right? So now we get to this stage where you're not allowed to use the word, and we could use it in front of you if we want to. You lost your nigger privileges. Am I lying? So we can call it to each other if we want to, whether it's right or wrong, we can, but we don't want to hear from you. You lost your privilege. You're catching it? So you can't use it. I could call my cousin a nigga if I want to, but if I catch you doing it, children of your faith, we're going to have a problem because you lost your privilege. You lost your past. That's right. You lost your past. And our anger that's been built up for centuries will come out on you because you lost your past. You don't have that right no more. You ain't holding the whip no more. You understand? You're not holding the whip. So I can call my brother Nick and see what's up, Nick. But don't you do it. Because you do it, we're going to have a problem. You lost your privilege. Y'all know I'm telling the truth, right? You know I'm not lying, right? Y'all know I'm telling the truth, right? And now you know why. See, all of you Hebrews that are now grafted in can understand why. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. I'm telling you where it comes from and why it comes from. You understand that? That's all I'm saying to you. You lost your privilege. For us, it's privilege. We now can use the word with each other. You can't use it. And if you do, you got a problem. It's us. It's like this, brother. You ever have families, right? and you see the families fighting with each other. I noticed this especially among the northern tribes. They be fighting with each other, arguing with each other, fighting with each other. But if you get in there and try to say something against one of them and you ain't part of the family, they'll all turn on you. Right? Like they could be beating each other up and fighting and cutting and everything. But you go in there, you're not part of the family now, and you try to take a side, you're going to have a problem. In other words, this is fam business. Stay out of it. That's exactly right. That's the truth, right? That's exactly right. Well, this is the same thing in this situation. This is fam business. Y'all ain't got nothing to do with it. You understand? Y'all ain't got nothing to do with it. That's how it is. It all started with the curse. It's fam business, mind yours. Exactly. This is fam business, mind yours. There you go. That's why, like I said, dude try to tell me this is what the black man thinks and this is how the black man. I was like, dude, shut up. Just based on principle, you have no right talking about this. Well, yes, I do. See how ignorant people are. And I'm a non-violent person, so I didn't give him what he should have got. But I left it alone. Left him alone too. Don't want to talk to him, don't want to see him. That was the ultimate slap in the face. You want to tell me my experience? Exactly. You want to tell me my experience? Okay. It's all right though. Angry Britches, what we are now understanding. It's prophetic. It's prophetic. And it has an endpoint. And now, praise the Most High for prophecy, we are now awakening and seeing the endpoint. Isn't that wonderful? That's what the blessing of awakening is. You are now understanding things that you never understood before. You're seeing things that you never saw before for the clarity of what you're seeing. And you're like, oh, that's why. And now that we have also the prophetic utterance of the word, we know there's an end and we can see it coming. They can't see it coming. They never will. That's why Messiah said for them, it's going to be like what? A thief in the night. Because they can't see it coming. We can see it coming. You understand? We can see it coming. See? And that's what the blessing is. Brings us to verse 68. The big verse that really is the punctuation, really the exclamation point, really the thing that went ding in a lot of people's mind. Verse 68. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now let's break this down, brethren. Let's break this down. This is the thing that went off in a lot of brothers' heads, a lot of sisters' heads that said, what? That's what caused all of this was leading up to boom, that part, verse 68. Now, ye shall bring you in Egypt again with ships. There, I want to show you something in Exodus chapter 15. It's actually Exodus chapter 14. Okay, watch Exodus 14, verse 13. Exodus 14, verse 13. Actually, let's at Exodus 12 and 13. Exodus chapter 14, verses 12 and 13. Exodus chapter 14, verses 12 and 13. Watch what this says. Watch what this says. Exodus chapter 14, verses 12 and 13. Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will show you today. For Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them no more forever. Now let's break that down. So they were coming out of slavery in Egypt, in Mizraim. The children of Israel, our fathers, coming out of slavery, being delivered from slavery. That's why he kept saying Egypt, even though it means Israel. He kept saying the house of bondage. I am Yahweh, thy most High will brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, the house of the furnace, he would call it. So he said here in verse 68, I'll bring you again into Egypt. I'm bringing you again into bondage. And he said, I told you wouldn't see it anymore, but if you disobey the Most High, I'm putting you back in that situation. Except this time, they're going to carry you by ships into that situation, with the chains on your neck that was mentioned earlier in the chapter, right? Y'all get it now? When he said, thou shalt see it no more again, that's what Moses told him. He said, you see the Egyptians? In other words, he said, you should leave us, let us continue as slaves. Better to be a live slave than a dead man in the wilderness. But Moses said, look at them. You're not going to see them again anymore, forever. This is it. You're being delivered. Right? So he said, by the way whereof I spake to thee, thou shalt see him no more again. So he's telling him, that place I told you, you would not go back to, that slavery. If you disobey the commandment, you're going back into it. Does that make sense, y'all? You see where that comes from? And then he said, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. What does that mean, buy? You remember now, in the Hebrew slavery, you were a slave generally for debt, but generally even the slave had 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the slave could go. Now, the children that slave had belonged to the master. If he wanted to stay with the children or the master wanted to keep the children, he had no say in that matter, but he could leave. Slavery was a limited time. But if you have a slavery, whereas it says no man shall buy you, that means nobody's going to redeem you. That's eternal servitude. That's what we call today chattel slavery. In other words, you're going to always be a slave. You will never not be a slave. All your children are going to be slaves, and you have no hope of ever escaping slavery. That's what Moses was talking about here. See, I'm going to put you back. I told you would never go back to slavery. I told you that. But if you disobey Yah, and if you start doing what the other nation were doing, and you don't keep his commandments, you're going to go back into slavery, and nobody's going to redeem you. You're going to remain a slave. You're going to be in chattel slavery forever until I redeem you. Brethren, let's talk about this for 1 second. We're in the system of Babylon right now, are we not? Aren't there really, truly different levels of slavery? Aren't there? Doesn't everybody on earth have somebody to answer to except at the top rung? When you're at the top of the pile, and the top of the pile ain't got nothing to do with money. It has to do with control of money and control of banking and control of politics. But we know the great whore is based in Rome. People don't know that. That's the basis. That's the top of the pile. And the Jesuit order, the black pope with the white pope. We know that. And so that everybody else answers to somebody. The president of the U.S. answers the people that bought and paid for him. Every politician does. The athletes that get paid tens of millions of dollars, who do they answer to? The owners of the teams. Do they not? They answer to the owners of the team. Why is that? Because the owners are writing their checks. You see, you think Kyrie Irving, he gets $40 million a year. Boy, that brother rich, he's powerful. Yes, he's as powerful almost until you get to the guy that's writing his checks. He's more powerful. The guy that's writing the checks. Oh, he can leave anytime he wants, but you better leave that money on the table and walk. Because the guy that's writing his checks has more power. You understand? And so everybody has somebody to answer to. So really and truly, in the Babylonian system, all of us are different forms of slaves. All of us are. Because we all answer to somebody. Now, the kingdom of Yahweh will be such that all of us will answer to Yahweh and to Messiah, the only true righteousness that ever existed, the origin of everything that is true, that does live, that is eternal, that is righteous, will answer to him and nobody else. There'll be no corruption. There'll be no greed. There'll be no we got to get more even though we're billionaires. There'll be none of that. That won't exist anymore. That's when we'll be really free. Okay? But right now, in the system we're in Babylon, both the political side, the business side, in the sports and entertainment business, everybody answers to somebody. Everybody. Just today, I went to go see my dad, where my wife and I drove by this development. And it seems to have stopped. Like they were housing, they were building these houses. And now for months, it just stopped. Like nobody's working in there. The houses stopped being built. And you know what? I said to my wife, I see, because what the bank decided, no more money. See, they were building as long as the bank said you can. When the banks decide no more, that's it. Until the banks decide you can start again. See how that works? The whole system is built like that. The whole system. And what it is that people are brainwashed into thinking not only about race, but also the thinking you actually have a say. You actually have a say in what the great whore does. You have a say in the control of the great whore. Does the Bible say that? No. The great whore answers to the dragon who gives it power, seat, and authority. Okay? That's how this game works. We are rebelling against the whore when we decide we answer to YAH and his word. That's what that is about. Okay? It takes me, I'm just telling you stuff that I've learned over my 62 years. It's taken me a long time to come to some of these conclusions. Most I've been trying to show me, but I've been stiff-necked. I have to be admitted. And I'm trying to give you the benefit of my stiff-neckedness. You know, I was voting. I voted in almost every presidential election from 1988 until 2012. I voted for Barack Obama twice. I know I was a dummy. I know I was. No doubt. 2012 was the last one, though. For me, that is. And I don't begrudge anybody, that wants to vote. That's not my business for you to do what your conscience tells you. But that took me a long time to learn my vote really don't matter. It doesn't. That I was being conned. That I because he looked like one of my cousins, I could trust him. Well, now I know better. And you know what else? He was the first Democrat I ever voted for. And the last. He was the first and the last. I voted independent most of the time. I voted Republican actually in 88. But I voted independent all the other times. Didn't trust Bill Clinton. Didn't trust none of them. Didn't trust Republicans. They all... So I would write somebody in. Is this guy running? Okay, write him in. But then Barack got me now. He got me. I said, oh, shoot, one of us going in there? He got me. He got me, but it ain't happening no more. It ain't happening again now. But that's me. So, if you end up voting for Ron DeSantis or Bernie Sanders or whoever, that's your business. That's another thing I say. Your politics is your business. I'm not going to get involved with it. I'm just telling you from what I've learned my vote don't matter. It don't matter. I don't buy into nothing they telling me because I know they all lying they face off. They lying they face off and they bought and paid for it. All of them. Ain't no honest ones among them. And if they come into the cesspool smelling like a rose, I can guarantee you they're not going to come out of the cesspool smelling like a rose. Because you cannot get in a cesspool and don't smell like the cesspool. So don't believe that. See, they might come in with good intentions, but once you get in, see, look, you work in a bar, right? You working on tips. So maybe, you clocking maybe 6, 7, 8, 900 a week in tips from the bar, right? And you surviving, you're not getting ahead or anything, but then you decide, you're going to run for Congress. So, you go from that 900 a week in tips to 170 grand. Your own assistant, full benefits, retirement package. And all you got to do is stay in office. Now, to stay in office, you start off being all kind of idealistic, but then you start to understand the game is to keep staying in and keep that 170 something grand flowing, and then try to get on some committees and get a little extra money. That's the game. So you might have came in there being honest, but you can't stay that way unless you're willing to give up the money. This is especially true of the Hebrews that try to get in. The children of Yefet, it's their game. They made the game up, so whatever, But the Hebrews that try to, you got to buy into ideologies, and you can't, no. You're going to have to compromise who you are. You understand? So, brethren, I'm just telling you my experience. You do what you feel. Do it. What's the Bible? How the Bible put it? Do what seemeth good unto you. Do what seemeth good to you. But for me in my house, we've learned our lesson, man. Learned it. Yeah, right. That's right, Stephen. So I say, that was Deuteronomy 28. We're going to go into 29 by the grace of the Most High next week. The Most High bless you and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Most High lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom.